Oh, would you look at the time? Sneak peek time! You guys voted for it, so here it is, the very first episode of my Sopranos Season 2 tier list. Work overall on the video has been going pretty solid recently, though I've had to play catch up for the past couple of days on some work I missed due to midterms. I've caught up with it for the most part though, and my current projected release date for the video is still April 25th, though I wouldn't hold my breath on it. College is an unpredictable beast, and I'll update you guys on any delays should there be one. Thank you guys very much for your patience as always, and I will see you again in the full video. Take care. Anyways, enough of the yapping, let's make this happen. Roll film. Season 2, Episode 1. Guy walks into a psychiatrist's office. The episode opens up on a bunch of nerds taking a stockbroker exam, with a teacher calling out everyone's names to take attendance.
Maltasanti, Christopher.
Here.
Oh my god, Chris, what happened to you? Turns out Chris paid this guy to take the exam for him for reasons that we'll see later. As the show transitions to this fantastic montage set to Frank Sinatra's Francis Albert's It Was a Very Good Year. The title of the song is fairly accurate, as it shows us how everyone has been doing after the events of last season. Livia is currently rotting away in the hospital like the scum of the earth she is, business is going back to normal in the DeMeo crime family, Melfi is adjusting to her temporary life after Tony told her to hit the bricks, Silvio is still dragging the Godfather 3 bit, AJ is doing nothing, and Paulie's playing Battleship. Christopher is falling further into his drug habit, Meadow is busy just fooling around. And Carm and Tony are tolerating each other. Tony wakes up the next morning and grabs his daily paper like he did in the pilot episode, when he notices a car sitting suspiciously next to his driveway. Thinking he's about to either get whacked or arrested, Tony pisses himself and starts running back up the driveway. But it turns out to be a big misunderstanding, as who walks out of the car but the Pussinator himself, who we haven't seen in the show since he went missing and nobody knows anything. Tony angrily tells him to come into the house to talk, but Pussy tells Tony to pinky promise that he won't kill him for going missing for the past few months. He criticizes Tony for fingering Pussy as the rat, and he talks about the scary encounter he had with Tony last season, when he randomly showed up to Pussy's house and started questioning his loyalty, and how he had a bad feeling that he was gonna get screwed by Tony and the gang. Tony starts yelling at Pussy in the basement for leaving them for so long, but Pussy says that the reason for his long absence was because his doctor sent him to a clinic in Puerto Rico for his shit back, and that he met a lady friend down there as well. He says that the only reason he's back now is because he needs the money to support his kids.
Come here. Come here, you fat fuck.
Okay, Tony, that was just mean. He brings Pussy in for a hug, and starts patting him down to check for a wire. Pussy pushes him back for being a weirdo, but Tony then gives Pussy a hug for real this time, warning him to not pull any shit like this again. For now, Pussy and Tony are back to being on decent terms, as Tony tells Pussy about Junior being under indictment, as well as Philly Parisi being the acting capo in Junior's place. And we're taken to the airport, where we get another bout of great dubbing from the Sopranos ADR team.
That's my favorite bag. Don't lose.
Philly picks up Gigi, and begins telling him of a rumor that Tony tried to suffocate Livia with a pillow for being behind his assassination attempt, which was actually what was originally going to happen in the season 1 finale, but we'll get back to that later. Philly also tells Gigi the rumor of Tony seeing a psychiatrist, and right after Philly's all like, "Look at me now, I'm the leader of this family, bitch," Gigi shoots Philly in the face. Turns out this was all just one big hit set up by Tony, as Silvio calls Tony later that night saying that the job's done. Meanwhile, Melfi's doing her job as a therapist inside of her motel room, claiming to her patients that she's getting the carpet replaced in her office. Right after this, she gets a call from Tony, saying that it's safe to come home now. And Melfi says, "How the fuck did you get this number?" as Tony hangs up. Now you're probably still wondering, say, why did Chris fake a stockbroker exam? Well, that's because of a brand new scheme that Chris has concocted by the name of Webistics, a pump and dump scam headed by Chris. Chris is hard at work on Webistics when he's woken up by Adriana, and we're introduced to Chris's two loyal assistants in this operation, Matthew Bevilacqua and Sean Gismonti, who beat the shit out of this random Webistics employee for sucking at his job. While Tony's in the middle of a meeting, he gets a call from Carm, who gives Tony the absolutely horrific news that his older sister Janice, who we saw in a flashback last season, has decided to stop by for a visit, which immediately pisses Tony off as he rambles about her running another con to take money from him. However, Tony reluctantly lets her stay at the house, and even plans a little family reunion to celebrate.
But obviously...
Your mother isn't welcome.
Really? What'd she do? Silvio and the rest of the crew celebrate Pussy's return by busting his balls. And they tell him about Jimmy being the rat, as well as Pussy's payments being covered while he was gone. Silvio continues doing Godfather impressions before informing Tony that two of Chris's guys down at Webistics sent the dude we saw get beat up down to the emergency room, which angers Tony as he tells him to send Chris down ASAP. As Tony sulks in the Bing, Paulie tells Tony that Pussy's Puerto Rico story checks out. And we're reintroduced to Janice as her and Tony immediately start bickering with each other. Janice and the kids bust Tony's balls some more before Janice heads out for a smoke. And Tony smokes with her, catching up with each other's lives. Janice asks how Tony's relationship is with his mom, and Tony politely says that she's dead to him. Janice says, hey, you said you were gonna take care of Livia with Barb, and Tony snaps back, saying that Janice hasn't done shit for the family in over 20 years since she moved to Seattle. While Tony proclaims that Livia's stroke was the result of pent-up anger, Janice tries to convince Tony that Livia's been reduced to nothing more than a frail old lady, and offers to take Livia off his hands to Seattle for a couple $100. Tony reluctantly forks over some money to Janice to get her out of his hair, and later meets Chris of the Bing to criticize his management skills, saying to get him and his guys under control so that they don't attract any attention to Whoopistics. Later, Tony finds out from a real estate agent that a bunch of teenagers broke into Olivia's house and partied in it, which isn't exactly a good thing since Tony is trying to, sell it. And Carm tells him to calm his ass down so he's not in a bad mood at the family reunion. Carm mentions that her parents are coming over, which he says is a miracle because Livia said some horrible shit about them over the years. And Tony actually shows some restraint before instinctually defending Livia, saying once again that she's dead to him. Carm suggests that Tony go back into therapy since he's been self-medicating recently. And Chris tells Matt and Sean to knock it off with a beating people up thing. Meadow attempts to feed Livia some slop, but Livia says to stop so that she can die.
Why can't this family just get along?
Some people don't wanna.
It's you! You're the problem! Livia pretends to care about Meadow and gives her her great-grandmother's ring so that she won't forget her. And Tony fools around in his car listening to Smoke on the Water. That's funny, I wonder where I've heard that song before. And he has a panic attack and dies. Janice arrives back at Tony's place in this shitty car as the family reunion kicks off, as Carm happily watches Tony bonding with the family again. Carm's mom argues with Carm about coming over, mockingly calling Tony mommy dearest, as Carm says that them never coming to the house before Livia got exiled was all a part of Livia's manipulation. Her mom mentions a comment that Livia made at their wedding, where she said that it would be a mistake to marry Tony since he'll get bored of her easily. And Carm silently continues cooking as we're taken to the party. Janice and Barb talk with each other about the family, and Janice tries to gas up Livia by implying that she doesn't deserve to be barred from the family reunion. Barb's like, dude, she tried to kill Tony. But Janice brushes it off and starts rambling about Tony selling Livia's house. Barb advises her to just stay out and let Tony handle all of Livia's crap, but Janice poops out of the party and gets picked up by some dude. Just a few moments later, Tony sneaks around Janice's car and finds a for sale sign lying right in the back. Whoa, I wonder where that could be from.
What the fuck?
Tony says what the fuck as he tells Carm that Janice only came down from Seattle to try and get the house away from Tony, and that she used the $400 he gave her earlier to purchase the shitty car we saw her drive up with. Tony is absolutely pissed, saying that the con is only gonna drag on and get worse. And Carm says that Tony really needs to get back into therapy to calm his nerves back down again.
Go outside. Join the party. Be with your friends. Have some pleasure.
Fucking
Tony,
bitch.
go ahead. Go have a beer.
Tony goes outside and watches Pussy cook food on the grill, and calls him a moron completely unprovoked. Pussy busts Tony's balls a bit as he continues to talk with the rest of the guys, and Tony nearly has a panic attack as he stares at Pussy, still doubtful about his so-called Puerto Rico trip. Chris and Adriana have an awkward meeting with Matt and Sean, saying that they'll do anything to get on Tony's good side. But Chris and Adriana are too busy arguing and slapping each other in the face to focus. Meanwhile, Tony finds Melfi sitting at a diner, trying to convince her that everything will be fine. But Melfi angrily tells Tony that her practice has taken a major blow because of this, mentioning that one of her patients committed suicide due to her unavailability. Tony tries to convince Melfi to take him back as a patient, mentioning that he drove off the road a while ago and that he needs to remain stable so that he can take care of his family. Despite this plea, Melfi still refuses to help, asking Tony how many more people have to die for Tony's personal growth.
I swear to Jesus Christ, nobody got killed because of you.
Get out of my life.
It's surprising just how much of a great character Melfi turned out to be in the show, even in the earlier seasons. Like, it would have been so easy for the writers to make her the one-dimensional, consistent voice of reason for Tony. You know, the constant guardian angel that can do no wrong except when it's convenient for the main characters. She could have simply stayed in the therapist's office and been confined exclusively to the therapy scenes, but the writers of The Sopranos were like, actually, let's make her a legitimately great character and take advantage of Lorraine Bracco's acting chops. She doesn't just accept Tony back after nearly ruining her life, she actively rejects him, and even goes as far as to say fuck you after Tony says that her system doesn't work. It's this personal, non-business side of Melfi that I love watching emerge during these types of situations, especially when she interacts with Tony. While her moral compass is certainly above like 99% of the characters in the show, she still isn't perfect, which makes her all the more interesting to watch. She continued to help Tony even knowing the atrocities he's capable of committing under the guise that therapists gotta get their hands dirty at some point. She pins the blame entirely on Tony for her patient's death, but to a certain extent, it's also her own fault. See? This show is awesome! Anyways, Tony stands outside of the diner thinking, what the fuck do I do now? And he heads back home early to Carm's surprise. Carm microwaves some spaghetti for Tony as the two stand awkwardly in the kitchen. And Tony eats at the table, inviting Carm to sit down. Carm sorts around through bills as Tony continues eating, signifying that, despite some on and off tension that we saw earlier, there's some relative normalcy in the Sopranos household as the episode draws to a close. This was a pretty good season opener. Nothing super insane, but nothing particularly bad either. I loved watching Pussy's eventual return to the crew, as well as witnessing the fallout between Tony and Melfi at the diner, easily the best scene of the episode. I'm still mixed on how I feel about Janice though. I don't hate her character, I think her character's great, but I can never tell whether or not I like her or if I want to see her get run over by a truck. Overall, I'm feeling the beats here on this episode.